a big explosion has just occurred. Everyone is running from the entire financial district now. The smoke is filling the entire area. Let's go. Come on.
Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks, had one last warning for Americans before his death. A message you might actually agree with. But before we get into that, we need to tell you about the man's history. Osama bin Laden was the 17th of 52 children from a wealthy and influential businessman in Saudi Arabia. Growing up in a privileged environment, bin Laden received a decent education and was exposed to conservative Islamic teachings. He was particularly influenced by the teachings of radical Islamist scholars such as Sayyid Qutb.
Osama was more religious than the rest of us. He did not like to listen to music or to watch TV.
The 1980s marked a significant turning point in Osama bin Laden's life. During this period, he became involved in the Afghan resistance against the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. He saw this conflict as an opportunity to defend Islam against what he perceived as foreign aggression. Bin Laden, along with other like-minded individuals, joined the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan.
I've talked to eyewitnesses of the battles that Osama bin Laden was involved in, and whatever your views about him, he's not a coward.
The experience of fighting alongside the Mujahideen and witnessing their success in repelling the Soviet forces had a profound impact on bin Laden. He believed that a small group of dedicated and ideologically motivated fighters could achieve significant results. As the Afghan conflict concluded with the Soviet withdrawal in 1989, bin Laden continued to develop his radical ideas.
We have focused declaration of jihad on striking at the U.S. soldiers inside Arabia, the country of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina.
In the early 1990s, bin Laden's focus shifted towards the United States and its perceived role in oppressing Muslims worldwide. He criticized the presence of American troops in Saudi Arabia after the Gulf War, viewing it as a desecration of Islamic holy sites. This anger culminated in the 1998 bombings of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania.
Well, he's obviously a narcissist in many important ways. He sees himself as indispensable to the struggle, to his own faith, to world history, and there's a megalomania in his actions.
Osama bin Laden founded Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden's growing extremism led him to establish Al-Qaeda, which translates to the base in Arabic, in the late 1980s. Al-Qaeda was conceived as a militant Islamic organization with the primary goal of uniting Muslims under a strict interpretation of Islam, promoting armed jihad against enemies, particularly the United States and its allies. In October 2000, Al-Qaeda was responsible for the attack on the USS Cole, the United States Navy-guided missile destroyer, while it was refueling in Yemen. Explosives were detonated alongside the ship's hull, killing 17 sailors. Then 9/11 happened.
We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
These attacks, carried out by 19 hijackers, led to the deaths of nearly 3,000 people and prompted the U.S. to launch the War on Terror, including military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq. Bin Laden became a man on the run. He communicated with followers online, staying in hiding and sending threats to the West.
We want to restore our Islamic nation's freedom. Just as you violate our security, we violate yours.
Osama bin Laden continued to elude capture for years after the 9/11 attacks. He spent $50,000 through a middleman to buy property lots in a suburb of Abbottabad. A compound was built to become his hideout. He lives there with 2 of his 4 wives, some of his children, and grandchildren.
We don't forget he had a lot of time on his hands, so he would write 46-page memos to his lieutenants, and then he would, put it on a thumb drive and give it to a courier.
The couriers relayed his message to his followers. Security was high.
The search for bin Laden and the decade that took, I think at times there was a source of an enormous frustration for the intelligence community, if not almost embarrassment.
In the years following the 9/11 attacks, the United States intensified its efforts to gather intelligence on the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden.
I at that point thought bin Laden was gone. I thought he was a ghost. He's a myth, and he's going to go down in history as Al-Qaeda saint.
Multiple intelligence agencies, including the CIA, conducted operations to track him down. In the meantime, bin Laden was still at large and directing his followers from afar.
In November of 2002, U.S. intelligence officials warned al-Qaeda might be planning, quote, spectacular attacks that could cause mass casualties.
In July 2005, 4 men detonated bombs in London, killing 52 people.
There is a suggestion that the explosion on the bus in Tavistock Square was caused by a suicide bomber.
Then in 2006, a travesty was averted.
British security services uncover an al-Qaeda plot that would have dwarfed 9/11.
There were plans for as many as 9 aircraft flying from the United Kingdom to the United States of America to be attacked, possibly by some form of liquid explosives.
The hunt for bin Laden intensified. His use of couriers to communicate was a crucial factor in eventually locating him at his compound. In early 2011, President Obama authorized a covert operation to raid the compound and potentially eliminate Osama bin Laden. The operation was named Neptune Spear. He was killed by U.S. Navy SEALs in a raid on his compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan on May 2nd, 2011.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
The death of Osama bin Laden was a significant milestone in the global fight against terrorism. It marked the end of nearly a decade-long manhunt and was seen as a major blow to al-Qaeda. A decade after the 9/11 attacks, a new video surfaced featuring bin Laden warning the American people about the dangers of capitalism and the military-industrial complex. In the 6-minute message, he says, "And it seems that the path to stop the hegemony of capitalism is to carry out a real radical change that will help you liberate. Not to liberate Iraq from Saddam Hussein, but to liberate the White House so that Barack Hussein will be liberated, and with him, everyone else from the hegemony of these corporations. Peace be upon those who heed the advice." Newly released photographs. Recently, the U.S. government has released photographs of key moments inside the White House during the Neptune Spear raid.
Now we're getting a truly extraordinary look behind the scenes over at the White House Situation Room as that daring mission was actually underway.
Over 900 photos were taken by the official White House photographer on May 1st, 2011, as President Obama and his national security team converse in the Situation Conference Room. Once the raid was underway, the team crammed into a room to watch the live video feed, and the rest is history. Thanks for watching this episode of History 101. Be sure to join us next time.